Good morning. It's approximately 7:15, the day after Sylvia Likens died, October 27th, 2019. And despite every attempt I made, and there were 4 attempts, to film and post this video on the day Sylvia died 54 years ago, karma absolutely would not let that happen. I don't know if it was karma, or Sylvia's spirit, or Jenny's spirit, or Gertrude's spirit, or the spirit of many other people involved in this tragedy who are now dead. But yeah, karma absolutely refused to let me do this yesterday. I want to say that Sylvia Likens' nickname was Cookie, which is why I have some cookies here. Actually, okay, turn the cookies around so you can see them. I actually would have probably had Oreos, but the gas station didn't have them, and the Family Dollar was out of them too, in the individual packages. But I'm sure they had lemon sandwich cookies back in 1965. So let's get into the last few weeks of Sylvia's life and the abuses that she occurred. And unfortunately, only Sylvia knows all the abuses that occurred. And since she's dead, she can't testify to that. But according to Jenny's testimony, the last visit by her parents was Tuesday, October 5th, 1965. Poor Sylvia died exactly 3 weeks later, and when I say exactly, I mean it within plus or minus 2 hours. As this was a school day, this would have had occurred after school, and school got out about 3:30, so yeah, exactly 3 weeks. Now, during this visit, her parents brought the girls some clothes. Now, during another visit, and I'm not sure when this occurred, like I said, there's a lot of moving parts to this story, and it's hard to put a precise timeline on a lot of this abuse. But during one visit, Sylvia said she needed some shoes. Her parents was going to give her $3, and somebody said that she only needed $2. So that's what her parents gave Gertrude, which Sylvia never got the shoes, never got the money. Are we surprised? I don't think so. Okay. At one point, she was thrown from a chair by Paula during the White Castle hamburger incident. Yeah, Paula was a really nice girl. Approximately 2 weeks before Sylvia died, Paula decided to give Sylvia a haircut. Nice, right? Wrong. She basically chopped her hair off to just below the ears. And as you saw in the memorial photograph, her hair was probably about 3 inches longer than shoulder length. So, yeah, this was definitely an abusive situation. This one is probably the grossest part of the story. Sylvia was made to eat feces and drink urine. The feces primarily were from the baby's diapers. This was Jimmy Banishevsky's specialty, although Gertrude did this at least once herself. Poor Sylvia became a human ashtray. The coroner reports she had approximately 150 cigarette burns on her body. That is 7.5 packs of cigarettes. Gertrude, Ricky, Coy, Paula, and other kids did this to her. I mean, that's horrific. I know we've all experienced burns. And to experience that number of cigarette burns in probably about a 3 to 4 week period is horrific. I just can't imagine. Seriously. Things really got out of control in the last 2 weeks. But in the last week, the abuse went into freaking insane levels. Now, you've seen this diagram I've had since the start of the video. And this is of a Sam Brown belt. And I had one of these when I was a correctional officer. But at the tab end, you have a circular metal bar between the two layers of very, very thick leather, probably 8 to 10 ounces, with hooks that come out that engage with the bottom of the buckle. You have a metal stud, which engages in the center of the belt. So basically, either end of a police belt is a nasty, nasty, horrible weapon of abuse. That's Apple. But from court testimony, I believe the buckle may have not been on this belt when Sylvia was abused. Either way, because of the thickness of the belt, even if that buckle was removed, that's still a horrible means of abuse. On at least one, and I believe probably multiple occasions, that's Apple again, Sylvia was tied up in the basement by Jimmy and other people. Basically, she was tied up to the stairs. Yeah. Abuse. Strong abuse. She was also tied up, hands and feet, and put into a bathtub of scalding water at least twice. Her autopsy showed, sorry about that, missing skin due to these scaldings. Okay. She had some multiple running sores on her head. Gee whiz, thanks everybody! And Paula subjected Sylvia to having her head plunged into scalding hot water in the sink to clean these. Gee, thanks, Paula. Yeah, I'm being sarcastic here. On at least one occasion, Sylvia had her clothing torn off by Paula, and I believe at least once by Gertrude. Gertrude would also not take her laundry to the laundromat, except for a few pieces occasionally. So Sylvia was having to deal with no shampoo, no soap, no clean clothes. Apple again. And she got accused of being very dirty, but that was forced upon her. Because before that, she was a very, very clean girl. Yeah, these people deserve to burn in hell for a very long time. Now, approximately 4 days before she died, maybe 3, Gertrude was making plans to kill Sylvia, actively making plans to kill Sylvia, and she forced Sylvia to write the following note. To Mr. and Mrs. Likens. Yeah, right. Every kid who writes a note to their parent calls them by their adult name. It would have been Dear Mom and Dad. But, of course, Gertrude didn't realize that because she was a freaking idiot. Back to the letter. I went with a gang of boys in the middle of the night. And they said that they would pay me if I gave them something. So I got in the car, and they all got what they wanted, and they did. And when they finished, they beat me up and left sores on my face and all over my body, and also put I am a prostitute and proud of it. I have done just about everything that I could just to make Gertie mad and cost Gertie more. Change the page. Money than she's got. I've torn up a new mattress and peed on it. I've also cost Gertrude doctor bills that she really can't pay and made Gertie a nervous wreck. I've broken another wooden chair, probably when she was thrown out of it by Paula. I've been making Gertie a nervous wreck and all her kids. I cost $35 for a hospital one day. Yeah, that was when Paula broke her wrist beating Sylvia up. And I wouldn't do nothing around the house. I have done anything to do these things to make things out of the way, to make things worse for her. Yeah, that last sentence is really messed up. But that's what Gertie made her write. Now, approximately 3 days before she died, Sylvia told Jenny that she knew she was going to die. Yeah. That is so freaking sad. The letter was written shortly after, or maybe the day after, Gertrude started with the eye and Ricky Howitz finished carving. I am a prostitute and am proud of it, with a hot needle. It was then filled in with ink from a fountain pen. Yeah, all the reports I kept reading said there was very little blood during the carving of "I am a prostitute and proud of it." And that really confused me because the autopsy photos showed this very, very, very strongly. And after I saw the court testimony saying they filled it in with ink, that made sense. After this, she was subjected to having an 3 branded on her, although it's supposed to be an S. The reports are a little bit confusing as to whether it was a bolt or a fire poker that was used to make this 3. But based on the edges of the design, I believe it probably was a bent bolt. Either way, horrific. Goddamn burns hurt. I know all of you have had a burn once or twice in your life, and they hurt like hell. Okay, let me see where I'm at. A day before Sylvia died, Gertie was making plans with the kids to dump Sylvia in quote-unquote Jimmy's Woods, which had to be code because this doesn't exist, but it is approximately 2 miles away from where they lived. So yeah, they were going to take her and leave her in a remote location and let her die. That didn't happen though. Monday, October 25th, Gertrude tried to strike Sylvia with a paddle, and she ended up hitting herself in the face. LOL. Causing a black eye. And this was actually a major point of testimony on Gertrude's defense. That she did have a black eye and facial abrasions, etc., when she was arrested. But the subsequent beating with the curtain rod was administered by Corey Hubbard, so he was actually the one who finally caused the injury that killed Sylvia. How he only got charged with convicted of manslaughter is beyond my belief, because Coy was the final one that killed Sylvia. Basically, she was beat to death with a curtain rod, resulting in a counter-coup subdural hematoma on the opposite side of her head from where the beating occurred. We'll discuss this in the final video of the series, because that does require some diagrams and some more explanation. As an EMT, I understand this, but as a layperson, you probably don't. But like I said, that's the next and last video. On the afternoon of the 26th, which was a Tuesday, Sylvia's dying, or in the last phases of dying. She is being subjected to being hosed down, and I think Ricky Hobbs brought the hose from his house, because Gertrude didn't have one. And a cold bath in attempts to revive her. She would later be clothed and her hands respectfully put across her body on a mattress. Yeah, like they cared about her after she died. During these 2 to 3 hours, Sylvia's speech was slurred and she was saying strange things, which you would expect with a head injury causing disordered thinking. When she stopped breathing, 15-year-old Stephanie tried mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Now, she wouldn't have been trained in this because at that era, only doctors were trained in CPR. So she saw this from TV. I've talked to nurses from that era who worked in cardiac care during that time, and they refused to do that afterwards because they basically had to watch patients die unless a doctor was there. But I will give Stephanie props for attempting to save Sylvia's life, even though she contributed to her death. Finally, at 5:30 p.m., Gertie had Ricky Hobbs, who they didn't have a phone in their house either, because even though they lived 2 houses away, that's where he would have called from. But he called across the street at the gas station, at the payphone, to say there was a probable dead girl at that location. Now, the story Gertie gave to the police was that Sylvia had been gone for a couple of weeks. She came home naked, clutching the note that Gertrude forced her to write, with all the horrible wounds, the 150 cigarette burns, the I am a prostitute and proud of it, the number 3, etc., ad nauseum. And basically everybody in the household stuck by the story, particularly Jay, because she was scared to death of Gertrude. But finally, Jenny had the chance to whisper to a police officer, "If you get me out of here, I will tell you everything that happened." And that was the starting point of the entire story coming out, and the fact that Sylvia Likens was killed by Gertrude Banchevsky and a dozen other children. Okay, that was the end of my notes. As I said in my last video, I condemn her next door neighbor, Virginia, her husband, and any of the other neighbors who heard Sylvia scream, for allowing her to die. Virginia got home from work approximately 1:45. She heard the screams and the yelling and the shovel being scraped across the floor / ceiling, wall for over 2 hours. And the reason she was about to call the police was because they couldn't get to sleep. Now, you didn't have CTI or CAT scans and MRIs back in 1965, but I think even a basic x-ray would have shown the subdural hematoma, and we will be discussing the mechanisms of that in the next video. But I'm firmly convinced that there was a better than 50-50 chance that she could have been saved if emergency services had been called that evening, which would have been 12 to 15 hours before she died. Really tragic. So I hope Virginia and her husband and any other people that night who heard Sylvia's scream burn in hell for eternity. So I think this video is finally going to work. Again, a police belt is a nasty piece of work if you're using it for abuse. The next video will probably be from Ellenberger Park, which is where I initially planned to film this video. But like I said, Karma had other plans. I will see you next time, probably in about 1 to 2 weeks. And thank you very much.